here with director Owen Renfroe. I've known Owen for many years, and for all of those years, he has been kind enough to come down to the studio, commune with the younger actors, talk to them, and give them insight. We just learned a moment ago that directing soap operas was not his goal when he was young, that he thought about being a performer for a while, an opera singer for a while, but then he found that his calling, his passion was more than just those things. It's also interesting that some of the things that he did in order to cement his future, in order to light his beacon even brighter, was to get together with actors and do play readings and just, unpaid, unscheduled, unadvertised, just get together and work, which is what I'm constantly telling you guys that you should be doing. When I went to high school, this year when I was watching the Tony Awards, it was like a battle of my high school compatriots as I watched Amy Ryan lose to Sarah Paulson, but Keisha Lewis won, and all three of them went to the same high school, which had a graduating class of only 40 for the drama department. And yet so many of them did well, and one of the reasons why was their dedication to constantly working. Directing soap operas, I know, is a grueling schedule, and actors can also expect for it to be grueling. So I'm going to let you guys ask a few questions, and I have some questions here because I don't want to shut you guys out. Who has a question for Owen? You can tell him your name, and then we'll start right in the front.
Knowing that you were coming down to the class, I went ahead and went through some interviews, and it's a similar thing that what you talked about here. It's very, very obvious that you're super passionate about the work that goes into it. And I know for a while when you were going between LA and New York, you were doing those play reads, the table reads, directing them. And I'm kind of in that same position where I'm self-governing myself right now and trying to find work, like David always says. And I just wondered if you had any outlets, any recommendations for things that we should be really honing in, that you think really come into practice when we're up on that stage and when we're getting, like how we're able to take information better from you, stuff that we can practice to do that.
Thank you for your question, Nathan. Look, there isn't any secret formula other than immerse yourself in the craft. So you want to see plays and watch TV shows and film and have your own assessments of what's happening. You want to read plays, I think, and I say plays, but you could make it screenplays as well. This is all craft-oriented. This isn't necessarily going to land you the job, but it's going to prepare you to land the job, for sure. And then it's a matter of doing it. And look, we've all got phones. They all have cameras. They all do video. So there's an opportunity to constantly be creative and making stuff, goofy as you think it may be. Any opportunity to practice your craft, acting, and different scenarios. I mean, you've studied probably with David the different techniques that can be out there, whether it's method or whatever it is, and just play with that in whatever short projects. Surround yourself with like-minded people who want to do this. And then it's been a while for me since I've been out there, but I would imagine that most of the film schools have short film opportunities to do, and people who are looking for passionate people who want to get involved and want to do small parts or big parts or whatever it is. But I will caution you not to wait to be discovered. The discovery happens in you. You got to do that. You got to be the one to say, I'm worth it. I've got this thing I'm passionate about, and that's what it takes. And I'm going to find an outlet for it no matter what. And so it's really a research project too, right? Because you're looking for these roles and these opportunities before you book the other job. I think extra work's valuable, frankly. If you're in SAG-AFTRA, if you can find a way to get on extra work, I think it's just good being around sets, being around other people. And
I wouldn't do it for too long, but definitely to get an understanding of the hierarchy, the process, and all that. And I love that he said that it has to happen inside you. Yeah. The discovery, the awakening, all that. I wish he had said it in private so I could rip it off and pass it off as my own. But all those are great advice. And even if you're going up for on Actors Access, some of these we can't pay you, but we'll feed you kind of college movie, you're still practicing auditioning. You're still having to get up there. You're still having to set up your lights. You're still having to edit. You're still having to connect. So, like I heard Owen say earlier, no matter the arena, focus and do your thing. So whether you're doing it on a big set with Steven Spielberg or whether you're doing it for, a Chapman University graduate student thesis project on polio, whatever it is, you're still going to have that same focus. If you're doing a scene and you're the principal actor, you're going to be focused. But if you're an extra in that scene, you're still going to be focused, aren't you? You're not going to be like, well, I'm not the main actor, so I can just phone it in. You're still going to get that experience of being locked in, of it really happening. I think that's great advice, especially for those of you that haven't maybe been on sets yet. Get your feet wet a little bit, get out there.
And David's right. Know when the expiration date is for that, too, because you don't want to do a lifelong. I mean, that's fine for some people, for sure. We have some wonderful extras, actually, that have been doing it for a career because they're on a bunch of different shows, and but if you want something else, then you have to know when you've had enough.
All right. Yes, Leighton.
Hi, Mr. Renfroe.
Yeah.
Pleasure to meet you. I'm Leighton Kahn. I had a quick question. So I've been currently doing classes with casting director Mr. Mark Teschner from General Hospital. And I asked him the other day about what he thinks he wants to find in a audition for a soap opera. I asked if you're looking for the certain type, genre, or whoever's connecting to it more. So generally, I'm just asking you the same thing, kind of. Do you look for someone who's fitting the part the most, or someone who is the character the most,
It's a good question because you're preparing for that, right? So we directors don't have much to do with the casting process whatsoever, honestly. Yeah. It's our casting department looks at tape and fills those roles. Now, if it's a contract role, they might be more in concert with the executive producer, and Mark is its own thing. Mark is he's royalty to me. That guy is so good at what he does, and he's a mensch and just a very smart, talented man. He could have done many things in life. He chose that. But I would say this. What I've heard from some of casting is they really are looking for a take on a role, right? A choice, a strong choice, because you can't control the type. You can't control whether you're right for it based on how you look or your voice or whatever it is, but you can control your take and your point of view of it. And then you can be open to whatever adjustments might come your way. And there is a way to articulate that. Now if it's self-tape, there's not a conversation there, but go in with absolutely a take. You don't have to tear apart the room and, you know what I mean? But just be refined, efficient with your take on something so that it's clean and it's not sloppy and a bunch of different things kind of happening. No. Just get laser sharp with one idea that rings through. That's right. That's what I would say.
I have a little two-in-one question. I know you mentioned that you are classically trained in opera. So I'm wondering how you found that training has influenced you when it comes to directing. And then when you work with actors that have had training in things like dance or music or whatever it may be, do you notice a difference in if they've had that prior creative experience?
Yes, sometimes you do notice a difference. If it's movement oriented and someone has dance experience, that's going to help them just the way they're in tune with their body, and you notice that right away. That's great. For me in my training, I think more the experience of being in that environment with incredible directors, Franco Zeffirelli, just a bunch of great minds, and Pavarotti, and these big shots. There was a sense of performance, composition, all of it that I kind of integrated into my being. And as a performer, I knew what was expected of me and that I knew I had to deliver. And learning the steps to get there was very important. So when the moment came, when I'm singing Tosca as a little skinny 13-year-old in the park for 50,000 people, my knees aren't shaking no, I got this. I've done this before. This is okay. I know my notes. I know my moment. I know when to come in. I got it. But that only comes when you've done it enough so that it flows.
That preparation creates that kind of base for you. I think we're sometimes as an actor, Stanislavski, who many people consider the granddaddy of the acting teachers, said, "I wrote everything I ever wrote only for when you're uninspired." most often as actors, as artists, you pick it up and you're like, ooh, I know what to do. I know what to play. I have great ideas. I'm brimming with choices. But sometimes you pick it up and you're like, I got no idea how to play this. Well, that's when you got to break it down. That's when you got to figure out, okay, well, what does my character want? You know, what's stopping me from getting it? Why do I want it now? What happens if I don't get it? You know, you ask yourself the questions that are going to drive you through when it's not so apparent to you. You know, what does the author want? What's the story he's trying to tell? Well, what's my part in it? Well, how do I serve him the best? How do I help tell his story the best? You know, it's interesting. I was looking at a script recently, and another actor had all of the lines, right? And so the actor that had the audition was mostly just reactive the whole time. And it said in there a couple of times, like, she goes off of him angrily or something, right? And the actor paid attention to the notes of the director in regards to playing the active listening. But they only did what what the writer wrote for them. They only did exactly that. And I'm like, look, when he says you go off of him angrily here, he's trying to give you a hint as to your state of being. Now you need to find other behaviors and active choices, not just what he's giving you. What the biggest complaint that I get from casting directors in regards to audition tapes is they all look exactly the same. You guys think you're reinventing the wheel, and they all look the same. So to make those specific choices in there, to do that, find the tone of what it is that you're playing, you know, and help tell the story. You know, I mean, I think one of the important things Owen just said was that he learned about performance. Performance is an element that is not just about acting and truth-telling. Performance is an element of knowing how to move the audience, knowing how to tell the story. You know, storytellers. He's a storyteller with the way that he works, and you need to be a storyteller with what you're doing too, not just a truth teller. You know.
Well said.
What do you look for in actors when it's booked? Like, what do you look for when it's time, and what do you need from them?
So
little of this, right?
Yeah. So it's the hardest job in soaps is the day player role is very hard because you're in for a day or two and you got to nail it. You have a crew waiting around. They want you to be successful. So there's that. And then the contract role is different, right? Because there's a commitment to your being there for a while to play this role. But what I ask from every new actor that comes on that's not a veteran who's been doing this a while, although they require maybe something different from me, is to know your lines cold, and to have an idea of what the scene's about and what you want in the scene, right? And then the obstacles take care of themselves with what else you're getting from other people and what's, you know, scripted, but 100% know your lines cold, and that could be 20 pages in one day. So you drag your friend in there and you run those lines, or you go on your phone and you read the other person's lines and you just work it. You turn off the TV, put down the phone, whatever you have to take, but you get them cold. Trust me. Like, that's so important, and you'll be respected and you'll be forgiven for everything. If you know your lines, are like, well, they know their lines, so we can work with this. And then you've got to have an idea about, you know, what you can offer and what that character wants in the scene. And it may be not right. That's okay. You came in with something. You can't be complacent about it. So that's what's required of you. And when you meet that, you're good. The rest is casting. The rest is, are you right for the role, right? And sometimes you are and sometimes you're not, and that gets discovered. But most of the time they know what they're doing, and you'll be okay. Yeah, and those are good people over there. So.
When I hear him say, you know, that could be 20 pages, that's not the exception, guys.
Yeah.
On a show like that, I mean, how many pages are you shooting a day?
Yeah, anywhere from 80 to 120. It depends. Now, there are shows that do 140. There's like, it's all different.
This is in a day. That's, I mean, you know, you're working on a scripted weekly series. You're going to shoot 8 pages in a day. It's a big day. You know, think about shooting that many pages in a day. So of utmost importance is preparation for something like that. So I would imagine that if you have an actor in and they fumble the ball in a mix and match or a chem read, that's probably it for them.
That's tough. Yeah, that's tough to get back.
And nowadays, since you have actors in, just at the very end oftentimes, and it used to be that there would be several sessions of callbacks. Have you now sometimes hired actors and been like, oh my God, this guy can't get his lines down. He's too green, and he rocked the audition, but he's not nailing the rest of it.
We're fortunate that hasn't happened. We're really, you sometimes get surprised by what comes in once it's tested in terms of the work. Then it's just my job is to put the actor in situations where they can be successful, right? So if you have someone working who's not what you thought exactly, okay, how do I work with what's there and what they're offering and what they can do to make sure we get this moment? And every director has different ways of talking with actors, and sometimes it's gentle, sometimes it's firm, sometimes it's, prompting questions that get them to ignite what's needed, and sometimes it's no. Here's what you got to do. Here's the line reading. I try and stay away from line readings, but I have absolutely been like, we're not getting it. It's going to be, and that's okay too.
Right, and you know what? We don't mind, do we, guys? Yes, Kurt.
Something we talk a lot about in my class that I teach is how, especially episodic, but especially soaps, there is so little time.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of actors, I've noticed, tend to expect to come to set to be directed, to be given, to be guided and mentored. And I wonder if you could speak to that a little bit about, especially day players, what is it like? What can you expect in terms of actual direction, and how much should you just be ready to have a take and a performance and just go with it?
Yeah, ideally you should just be ready for take and go with it. Ideally, that's the direction is extra, and I love working with actors. I love our veterans. I love our new actors. It's all exciting to me because you get to see something happening, And for our veterans, they're so good. And I mean, there's not a day that goes by. I was in shooting yesterday and watching the work of these couple of actors, and I'm just like out loud being like, they're so damn good. Like, they're so truthful. This moment is amazing. The audience is going to love it. And so we're rooting for them. And I think for the veteran actors, they just sometimes want to be reassured that their take is what we're looking for, or they want to be challenged maybe to find, what's something to latch onto, hook onto, use a lot of active verbs as opposed to be angry, like lash out at them or whatever can kind of get that. It's shorthand and it's quick. And some actors you have to know to stay out of the way. Like, they got this. And maybe it's just like, hey guys, let's do it again, but with a little more pace. Okay, we got it. Clumsy it up. Something I love to say. Just let it go. Don't push. Just clumsy it up. Just like.
So I hope you guys are hearing some of this, because I hear from you guys sometimes that you go on a set, either you're booked a guest star or you're a series regular, and you're like, I'm not getting any feedback from the director. They're not telling me anything. I think I must suck or whatever. That must mean they are so pleased. You know what I mean? Because if there is an issue, believe me, they're going to be the first ones to say something to somebody, because this is their, we're a piece of it, but they are really the ones that are putting it all together. And if one of the pieces doesn't fit, they're gonna fix that for sure.
So to speak on that, what do you really consider a great actor?
I think you know it when you feel it. God, that's a great question. What do you consider a great actor? I had this discussion with a friend of mine about Meryl Streep, who I consider a fantastic actor, and I have a very close friend who's like not a huge fan. And
what?
We had a big discussion about it, and that's okay. That's okay. Like, I am, and
it's not okay with me.
Yeah, I know, right? It's like so. And for me, just using her as an example, I feel she's in command of her instrument. And you believe in whatever role she's playing, the truth of it is right there. You connect with them, right? So great actor you connect with, whether it's Brando or Meryl Streep or someone else, or their breakout roles in every TV show or film, whether it's The Bear or my wife and I, oh my God, I just saw When We Were Lucky, the miniseries. Phenomenal, Joey King. Oh my God, like, I know people have been talking about her for years, but she is unbelievable. Unbelievable work in that miniseries. So I think there's many applications for being great in a role, and it comes down to knowing your instrument, being fearless in your choice, and in listening, and in reacting, and in going for what you want, and then calibrating that if you need to. There are times when we have the time, I can invite an actor, let's do something different in this take. Take another risk. Just take it in another place, take another risk. Come at it from here, or push her a little bit in this moment, or whatever it may be. And that, often you discover something else. But casting is 80% of it, honestly. If you're ready and you've got the craft, like if you're well cast, you're going to be successful.
So speaking to the casting for just a moment, who has the final say? Like when those tapes go in and they say, "Oh, your tape went to producers." Who's the person that gives it the stamp or says ixnay?
We have a triad of people who do that. That's the network, Sony, and our executive producer. Ultimately, if it's a big role, we'll look at the tapes and maybe bring somebody in and make that final call.
So you worked on General Hospital for several years, and now you work with The Young and the Restless. These are two shows that have been on for decades, 50, 60 years. What was it like entering into a production that's been around for so long? What was easier about that, since it had been around for so long, but also challenges, and any advice for somebody who is potentially, joining one of these shows or just any show that's been around for many, many years?
So the reassuring thing is they know their brand, they know what they are. There's no question why the audience is tuning in on either one of those shows, to see what actors, to see what stories, to get, what sense of the life of that town is. And that's reassuring, because you're coming in somewhere that's a well-oiled machine, and you just have to figure out how you can lend your voice to it and work like hell to support it and make your contribution that's unique. So when I was in General Hospital, I was younger and coming on, and these iconic actors, I'm all of a sudden directing, and I had to take a minute to kind of choose to make my contribution and not sheepishly work my way through so no one saw me and I could, do my visual thing and that's it. No, I had to really own it and dig into the work. And actually I worked with an acting coach in New York where I would read through some of the scenes together, just so that my take on the scene was crystal clear, and I could go in extra prepared and learning how to break down stuff in the way they did. So I kind of claimed my place and fumbled the ball tons, because that's what we do when we're learning, but also knew what contribution I was making, and that was helpful. It's really great to have a cast that's already got a rapport with one another. I mean, we have a beautiful cast. There's a number of families in Young and the Restless, and they've worked together for years, many of them. Some of them are newer. Ray Lynn's kind of last maybe 4 years. I don't know how long she's been with that family, but she just is amazing and gets along. And
well, that's why I mean, look around, because the next one is probably
100%
right here.
100%. Yeah, it just happens. And she was filling a role played by a terrific actor who's gone on to do other stuff. And I had played the role, I think, 10 years, and Ray Lynn was just like, "Oh, here we go. I'm jumping in. Big shoes to fill, but guess what? I'm got my voice, and I'm bringing it." And she did.
I think showing up prepared and ready to go, as an actor, especially if you're walking into a production like that, because I see you guys complain sometimes when you're like, "Oh, it's 9 pages, and they want it by tomorrow," and I'm thinking, if you're working on Y&R, it would be twice that, and it wouldn't be an audition. You'd be shooting that. So you're going kind of without a net.
Well, I'll say this too, is earn your stripes. If you got a 9-page scene, that's when you say, guess what? I'm going to kill it tomorrow and earn the respect and the support of everybody standing around, because the focus puller matters, and the boom operator matters, and your co-star really matters. I love it when a new actor, we have a young actor who came on 7 years ago and just kind of showed up, did his work for a while, and then he had a courtroom scene. And he was on the witness stand for 3 scenes in a row with tons of pages, and he just decided to go for it. And everything changed in his life after that scene, because these cast that came around him and were like, "Wow, that was amazing, and you really brought it. I didn't see it that way, and you get it, And so everything changed for him after that. Not just that
Then the people in the writers' room are like, I can write for that guy.
That's the other thing. Like, if you show up with your stuff and people see it, they're going to provide more for you.
I remember when, God rest his soul, Luke Perry booked 90210. He was supposed to do one episode, but it just kind of fit, and the writers are like, oh, we like this, let's go in a different direction. And that kind of stuff happens all the time. Who was Dennis Franz, right?
Right.
He was only supposed to do an episode 2. He was a guest star. Right. And then they brought him back, and then he became a cop on the show. I mean, that stuff happens. Just get out there and throw your colors on the canvas. Yeah. And also, I imagine if this kid was on this show in the background with a line or two here, a line or two there for a year, 18 months, then finally he gets that script with his opportunity to step up and impress. Boy, when you get that opportunity to step up and press, do it. I mean, look what happened because of it, in any situation.
And I want to add this too, because there can be a tendency to put a lot of pressure on yourself, right? To always be at a 10. And when you're doing volume work, you're going to fall, you're going to fumble. That's okay. So you have to just be kind of gentle with yourself too, and know that as long as you're prepared, what happens after that, you do your best. Like, it's not always, it's like game day is really important, of course, but it's the preparation that goes into that. Just check your boxes so you're ready. And then just be gentle with yourself, because you're going to have bad days, you're going to have bad moments. And if you really like this, and if you really want to do this, and you kind of need to know that, you kind of need to know that you can do what you love and pay your rent. That's critical. And if that's true for you, then just go in all the way and easy on the pressure on yourself, really.
Yeah, because how blessed are you if you're able to do that, Yeah. You've accomplished a great deal. So what land is there left to mark? What do you still desire to do? What gets you out of bed in the morning and makes you say, I got to kill it today because I'm heading towards this goal now? Beyond what you've already done.
Yeah, I think I'm in trouble if I'm not challenging myself all the time. We just did an episode, a big episode, which was loosely based on the show, a couple of episodes in the show Ripley on Netflix. There were some moments that kind of mirror that, and so we were looking for something different, and it required me to kind of shape and craft something that's unusual for us with the crew and get everybody on the same page with that. And so every once in a while an episode will come up that will challenge me, that excites me.
Right on. Go for it.
I was just kind of curious because I feel like today the landscape of television is always changing. So I'm curious how you think that the nature of soap operas will evolve, or do you think, like you said, because it's such a well-oiled machine and it's been done a certain way for so long, that's what makes it successful?
We are very encouraged that the ratings are still really strong with the 4 remaining shows. We're no longer trying to reinvent the soap. There were periods and rhythms of that where you'd see Steadicam every shot, or and that's fine. But the tried and true really works. The audience likes it. The viewership's very strong. Our veteran actors are hanging on and doing great, and we have new actors coming in that are also getting discovered and doing great. We have a new soap CBS is starting. I don't know if you've read about this, called The Gates, that's shooting in Atlanta. Starts shooting in October. Crazy, a new soap after decades. It's wonderful, and CBS is really getting behind it. Like, they want their success. We all do. There'll be crossover characters, I'm sure. So there won't be, I don't anticipate a lot of reinventing, although that show will certainly push the envelope, I think, stylistically, maybe a little bit, which is good.
It's great for the medium that they're putting a new show out there.
It's fantastic. It's a lot of jobs and opportunity, and they have a whole group in Atlanta that are eager to do this. That's all I'm saying.
My question would be, I know that you've been nominated and won an Emmy, and I've always wanted
several
Emmys. That's all right. My apologies. So I've always wanted to ask, how was that moment for you, and how mentally did it change you, or did it make you feel some kind of way or change your life or connections, or how was that moment?
Thank you for your question. It's not, I mean, look, the Emmys, it's never gotten anyone a raise in my field. It got me upgraded to first class once. It's true. They were like, you can't sit back there with this. Like, you're right, I can't. That was a long time ago. But so the Emmys for what we do for directing are a team award. So I work with 4 other directors, and we find the 2 best episodes we feel kind of represent us, and we submit them. Sometimes one of those is mine or both. Sometimes they're not. It's been a couple of times that there was one Emmy I didn't, it was just a team award. Like someone else directed the show and I got it. So, and that was thrilling because rah-rah. And there are other times when, no, the show that won or the 2 shows, maybe I contributed to that. And that feels really good to be recognized. I was able to give one to my teacher and mentor at Wesleyan who means so much to me. And she was touched by that. And, my sister has one and I have a few, and they just, it's nice to be recognized and appreciated for the work you've put in and the contribution you've made.
It's nice to have that many that you can give them away.
Yeah. But again, it's like, God, I don't want to sound cynical, but it's not what certainly motivates me. Like, we're going to win an Emmy and this is the thing, because that's not going to get you getting up in the morning for your next thing.
Now, any thoughts to move to a different genre or medium? Outside of soaps, series, television, film, theater?
Yeah, I think I'm always curious to transfer the lessons and the practice of my craft in another medium. I'm curious. I also acknowledge that I work on a show where I make a contribution that I'm proud of. And I'm now in no way a singular voice, but I make a contribution as one of a few. So it would be hard for me to get away to do something, but I would still love to do a feature that comes from my heart at some point, and I see a path to that sometime in the future. There's work being done towards that.
Good luck.
I can
good
say
luck
now.
with that.
Yeah. But in terms of feeling fulfilled, expressing what I want, a lot of that's being done.
And challenged? You still feel challenged?
Absolutely.
I would think.
In many ways. I mean, I left the studio last Friday hanging my head like, oh my God, that part of that stunk. Like, how did that happen? And then you leave like feeling like the champion who's just, raised 50 people from the dead or whatever.
And for you guys that feel that same way sometimes, here's somebody who's on the front lines, very respected, an established member, and he feels that way too. He'll come down going, boy, I bit it today. I blew it today. Oh, well, tomorrow's another day. I'm going to get up and give it my best. It moves on. So sometimes I'll see actors killing a scene and then they'll stumble over an article. They'll say a the instead of an and all of a sudden they're carrying it with them the rest of the scene, whereas the person watching is like, oh, forget that. You're killing it. Keep going. And also just to add, who's ever satisfied with their work? Ever, right? You watch it back, it's a cringeworthy experience from hell, right? Moments are satisfying.
Right.
Unfortunately. Dylan.
We would all consider David Gray here our mentor, absolutely. So I'm curious about your process when you were younger and at the beginning of your career with mentors that you've had and kind of how that helped shape your career.
Critical. I would go so far as to say you can look at some work and know if they had a mentor or not. It's critical to have that. I was so fortunate to be mentored, taught by Janine Basinger at Wesleyan, who is an amazing teacher, lover of film, from a filmmaker's perspective, understanding exactly how the audience's experience is shaped. And so I used the techniques I learned from her every day as far as subjectivity and where the audiences went and how to make them, just all of it from her. And then over the years, kind of just growing that voice. But when someone introduces you to your passion in that way, not saying she's responsible for my career, but just introducing me to that passion be always ever grateful, and still learning from her. You know, I have conversations with her. We talk about movies or TV or what's happening in it, and I learn still so much. She's read stuff I've written. She's watched stuff I've made.
And you still speak with her to this day?
Yes.
And how long ago did you study with her?
35 years. I mean, this is a woman, I mean, you can look her up, Janine Basinger. She's revered by many. She's had top directors and writers in Hollywood have studied with her in this little college in Connecticut. It's just and they have a great program today for undergrads. There's no graduate program. To the extent that, you know, I didn't go to USC postgraduate school or AFI or UCLA because I felt like I'm good. Like, yes, I'd get contacts and probably learn a lot more. I'm not shortchanging those programs. They're great. But I felt like, you know, the core of what I need, I think I'm getting from there.
And for those of you that are already ingrained in the industry, are already working, have reps, been series regulars or been on shows or whatever, and now you're thinking, well, college is coming up, I should go. Think about deferring maybe a year if the ball is rolling for you. You know, because I mean, some people go to college to get contacts, and then some people go to college and they don't realize you are the contacts.
Right.
You're going there, you're already plugged in, they want to use you for your connections. Who's your agent and manager? How do you set up to make self-tapes? You know, if you're already out there doing it, why go into the laboratory? One performance equals 1,000 rehearsals. Quentin Tarantino said of film school, you want to know the best film school? Make a film with no money.
Right.
That's film school. It's interesting to me to hear Owen say earlier that when he was starting out directing, he went and took acting classes so that he would know what was going through the mind of the actor. I say to you guys all the time, go out and make a short film, then you will know what the director is expecting of you, because you'll be directing that short film and you'll be like, I just wish my actors would do this. And the actor's so worried about being real. And you're like, dude, just play the scene, just do the thing. You know what I mean? Get out of your own way. So I think studying on multi-levels like that is good. But if you're ready, you're ready, you know?
You're ready.
You're ready. Yes.
You're ready.
Emmy.
Just do it.
Are there any directors that really inspire you, or movies or TV shows that you've looked up to and you've really loved and have inspired you throughout your career?
There's always stuff happening. I love the old movies, the really old stuff I saw a silent film from 1929 called Lucky Star, made by Fox. Simple story, but one of the most beautiful movies ever made. Like Silence. You talk about performance. See that movie. You can find it. That's amazing. What's happening between these two characters in love. And I was with some friends who work in the industry and very successful, and they were like, how did they do that? How would they, and I was saying, we try and do that every day. We've got two star-crossed lovers looking at each other across the room, and and it's silent. How do you find it? This was an incredible movie I'm inspired by, Lucky Star. He's directed by a guy named Frank Borzage, who won the first Oscar in 1929. So I love the old stuff. It makes me sound really pretentious, but I really do. And I learn from that all the time. I have TCM on and watching stuff and learning. Up-to-date stuff, I love Steven Soderbergh very much. Obviously Spielberg's, the master and what he's doing. There's tons. Alexander Payne, I think, is phenomenal. The Holdovers, for my money, was just an incredible movie. Singular vision.
Hard to watch.
It's so amazing. So there's always good. Every year there's one or two really great movies, I think, that inspire me. And
I think art itself is inspiring, especially when you're involved in the medium like we are. When you see so many formulaic movies out there, and then all of a sudden they make everything everywhere all at once, and you're just are you kidding me with that? And it gives me the hope that, because I know AI could never write that. Not in a billion years, you know what I mean? Never. It can only regurgitate what's been done. So, it kind of makes me feel like the cutting edge of art is safe.
There you go. Good, David.
At least,
that's it.
At least I hope.
Oh, that's right.
I have a question. Just wondering if you could ever see yourself maybe teaching a directing class in the future, being a mentor in that way. And also, if you were to teach a class right now on directing, what's one thing, one tip that you would share that really makes an episode great from the director's side?
Question. I would love to teach someday. I think I would really enjoy that process.
On that 8th day of the week.
Yeah, like later. Kids are gone doing their thing, and I'm have some more time. And what's the one thing I would teach? I think understanding the form and understanding how to shape the audience experience. All that matters is how it looks on the screen, right? Not just looks, but feels, the whole thing, how it is translated on the screen. So I'm not so much a fan of big films that rely on social commentary or the zeitgeist kind of thing, as much as the human heart story that's being told that's timeless, that crosses all genre. And so for me, I'm interested in how that's presented. You know, The Notebook, great movie.
Mm-hmm.
Great movie.
Mm-hmm.
Uses flashback, uses Nick Cassavetes directed it. He did a great job knowing how to get performances from those actors and a visual style that's just perfect in the moments. Like, he just hit it. Sometimes people just land on it. So, you know, in college, I lectured about shots and setups because I really love that. There's only, there's 1,000 places to put the camera, but really only one. Knowing where that is in every moment is important to me, and so I dig that.
I hope you guys heard what he just said. Yeah. There's 1,000 places to put the camera, but there's really only one.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. This is for those of you that are shooting your self-tapes like a talking head and you're just, at the bottom of the frame and all that.
You want intimacy? Lower the camera a little bit. You want danger? Really lower if you want to be powerful. Or if you want to have a more internal maybe moment where you want the audience to feel objective towards you, like not really relate, just put it up a little higher maybe. Maybe it's a little off to the side and we just catch a piece of, this character kind of thinking about it. Like, there's a lot of ways to kind of pair performance with the visual, and I really love that.
And the thing of it is, Owen went to film school and he's been working in the industry for years, and I mean, like, he's working. It is a grind working on one of those shows. So he's hours and hours with these cameras and working with the DPs to figure out where the shot, where it's going to be most impactful to put the camera. And, when he was first doing it growing up, you had to wait, 3-4 days before the dailies came in before you even saw if any of it was worth anything. Nowadays, you guys have cameras with you everywhere you go. You TikTok, you're using them constantly. You should be able to figure out this stuff in an effing week. It shouldn't take 4 years of film school, which is why I'm like super excited about the future of entertainment, since everybody has a camera now. Everybody has opportunity. I was just heard, what's his name? Not Vince Vaughn, the guy who directs the other one.
Jon Favreau.
Thank you. Favreau saying the other day, actors today, they have no excuse. He's like, when we made Swingers, we made it on credit cards. Right. We shot at night, no permits. He's like, nowadays you can make a movie for $1,000 if you want to.
Right.
So what's stopping you? What's stopping
When
you?
I first came out to LA with nothing, working as an assistant to pay for my rent while I made short films, my buddy and I went up to a famous Western location in Lone Pine, California, where there are these incredible rock formations, the Alabama Hills, hundreds of Westerns shot there, Gunga Din, like big Westerns. Tarantino did part of Django Unchained there, just a scene or two. And we had a spring-wound Bolex camera with a 100-foot spool in it, which gave you 3.5 minutes. And we didn't care. We were the actors. We made a movie called The Chase. It's ridiculous. It was 2 people. It's so ridiculous. But
3.5 minutes of film.
We were out there where they film these classic movies, and we did it, and we still have it. It's ridiculous, but it's fun. Years later, I made a Western out there, a 22-minute silent Western that's going to play at the festival 25 years after we made it in October.
Oh, wow.
And just because I learned so much just by doing it, that's what I'm saying. Just do it. Don't worry. Just do it. Hit the ground.
Had 3.5 minutes of film and still got out there to shoot. So, we'll shoot it until it's gone, until we roll out,
That's it.
I would talk about shooting for the edit. Boy, you're really shooting for the edit on that one, right?
The best, actually, in my whole career, I think the best shot I ever did was with we were at the end of a movie I did with a director named Scott Wiper, was an actor in it at the time, and another guy named Keith, who was in Dead Poets Society, friends from college, and we had to wrap up the story in like 30 feet of film. We looked at the meter. We got 30 feet left. We got to tell the whole story. We're like, okay, wait a minute, I got it. And I staged this thing. We set the camera down, and two brothers who'd lost their brother on the trail, and they walk into frame, and one's a little behind the other one. The other one turns and looks back at what had just happened, their whole journey. And his kerchief the wind came up in that moment. It's beautiful, blew the kerchief. And the other brother's looking at him and looking past, and then they look to one another, and they walk away. And one brother hangs another moment, and then he walks away deep into the frame. And it's like
2 feet left, baby.
And literally, you start to see the white coming as the film spools out. It was like, oh my God, But it doesn't matter. You just do it, You just.
The gods will generally let you get it in.
Yeah,
at the end, usually, if you're altruistic.
Yeah.
Go for it.
So we mentioned how on such a successful show, how it runs for like ever, all these decades and everything. Is there any time that you feel like it's getting stale, that you feel like you need to reinvent yourself? And if so, like, how do you keep it fresh with having to stay within these like parameters of like the studio and everything?
It's a good question. It's really the head writer's role to shepherd the show through the years with different stories that are challenging and relevant and interesting. And that's, I think, the hardest job, completely the hardest writing job in Hollywood is 250 new episodes a year. And one person starts at the top of the pyramid and then trickles down with partnerships and everything. Very, very hard. So I know for a fact that the head writer of every soap is constantly pushing to kind of find, how do I use, because you have actors under contract. It's not like you're going to bring somebody new in for something. The audience wants to relate to the characters they know as they go through changes. So that's a really hard job. As a director, how that might apply to me is kind of what I said earlier, as far as just continuing to challenge myself and in new ideas, and knowing that, gosh, we kind of played this already. How do we do it in a new way? That's, it's really important on a show that plays over many years to find the things that reignite everybody involved, whether they're actors, directors, camera, whatever it is.
Or in the audience.
Yeah,
right?
Certainly. That translates, yeah. So what is the thing that's going to reignite them? What is it? Is it the pace of a scene? Is it the challenge? Is it the unexpected? I've worked with some actors, and unfortunately, their shelf life is a little shorter because their process is challenging, but they're electric on the screen, and some young, some older, and they just do unexpected, and you don't even have it scripted, and they might just do something completely unexpected, but it hits like 75% of the time, which is enough.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh man, but maybe their process is nuts, and the other actor's like, well, I didn't know you were going to do that. What are you doing? I can't, but it works, some of the time. So that's always good for a show, to have a little bit of that spark.
That's got to be exciting too. That I would imagine erases the mundanity. I remember when I would do plays in New York, and sometimes you'd have long runs. As an actor out there, even if the play's successful, you can get a little complacent, but then an understudy would come in, and all of a sudden everything's a little different. It's exciting, Imagine having an actor that's throwing curveballs every once in a while. It's got its pluses and minuses, Great.
I like to write, and I'm kind of new to it. So do you have any advice on what to do when you kind of got writer's block and you don't really, like, you're trying to write something, you're trying to really think of something, but you can't get anything to come out? Do you have any advice on what to do?
Keep the pen moving, keep the fingers moving. Write the bad version of it. Just spill it out onto the page, dude. Just write the bad version. Don't worry.
You're going to rewrite it anyway.
Yeah, just like if you have writer's block, if you're like, oh, what should I write about? Do something ridiculous. Do your breakfast experience, or the night before watching whatever show, or your phone, what you saw. Write that. Write the dialogue between the voices in your head on the page. Or pick one person from your hometown and what if they're the star of their own movie? Right? So whoever that could be, just write that 5-page scene or couple scenes. Because I know my grandfather's from a small town in West Texas, so I know there's flavor there. There's flavor, wonderful flavor.
Like, ever had like one person become successful and be really famous and he's a rapper?
Oh, really? Okay, all right. Okay.
What's his name?
That Mexican OT.
That Mexican OT.
So what if it's not that person, but it's the bus driver who comes through, or it's the diner, or whatever, or you know what I mean? Like, it's hard, I know, but do the bad version, I guess is what I'm saying, because that's the surest way to clear writer's block.
Yeah.
Is to just take the judgment out of it and write the stupid, silly thing, and you'll eventually get to the core of who you are and what your contribution is, what your offering is.
How do you find yourself getting over the hurdle of, now I know what I know, kind of the like ignorance is bliss, and now you're on the other side of ignorance, and that can feel very intimidating. Do you have any advice, suggestions, especially for any aspiring filmmakers?
Yeah. There's a tendency to want to go back and fix what you've already done. So the first thing is to let it go and boldly choose what the next thing is, because it's got to push you further. What is Lin-Manuel going to do after Hamilton, dude?
Yeah.
We're waiting. We're eager for this voice to be out there, and none of us knows. Like, I would not want to be in his shoes. That is tough. So you got to take the pressure off and just jump into something. And sometimes the answer is a shorter thing, just to get those juices moving again, you know, because I think when you make a feature, friends I've talked to who've done it, or other big project, there's an attachment to the doing of it. You kind of lose the muscle to develop what the next thing is, because you've been, you know, and I'm always in the doing, always. I have homework every day preparing for the next thing. And so the development is where the muscle's not as strong for me. Yeah. It's like, bring me a scene, like, let's go now. You know, I got ideas, I know how to do this, but the developing of it takes a little more time. I have to take a day or two to kind of get in that rhythm and slow things down and be willing to imagine and risk and write down the bad idea, whatever it is, just to get out of that.
Going off what you just answered currently, I was wondering what your approach is when, you know, you get a new scene for the day. Where do you start? As far as, okay, how am I gonna, put this together and bring it to life?
Yeah, I mean, it helps to know the place of that scene within the greater whole. So what's the function of the scene within the greater script, the episode, what's happening? So that just is reading and just processing and just scene breakdown in your mind. You get quicker as you do it a lot. For me, I'm interested in the transition. How do we get into it? What the feeling is like. Whether it needs movement or whether it needs the stillness. We embrace that. And then just reading it over, and then for us it's easy because I know the actors, so I know how they're going to approach it maybe, or how I can easily hear their voices, and that helps block it and understand it.
So when you read it now, you start to hear it in the actors' voices?
Yes.
That's
Completely.
crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's
you ever go to sleep and you're right back on set calling for places?
All the time. And more often, the dream is like, I didn't get the scene, and here we go. It's my time to go, and I've been there too.
That's me every day. Leighton.
So I've been currently in the process of writing a short film, something that I'm really passionate about and I want to make. But my big worry and my big I keep struggling with it is how do I get it out there? Where? Because I would post it to YouTube, of course, all that stuff. But I don't want it to become just another film out of billions and billions.
I wish I had the magic answer there.
Right.
Look, part of what you're doing is you're practicing the crafts. You're trying to get better and better and better. And when you get something that you're really proud of, then you just have to tell everyone you know to look at it and see who wants to see it. And you have to enter it in every podunk competition that could, have value for it.
It was a film of his, after all, that he did that somebody took notice of that gave him his break.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
did you send that to someone else? Was that a connection that you had?
It was a buddy of mine from college, worked for a feature director who was married to a soap opera director.
Wow.
that many things, and
Send it to everyone.
yeah, and it got passed around, and then that person brought it to somebody at ABC who looked at it and was like, okay. And by the way, it's not a great film. It's got a good premise and it tells a visual story. Right. That's all there. Those boxes are checked. But I would love to do new stuff with that one. I'd love to read. It wasn't ready. It was, by the way, the script wasn't ready. But I was so passionate and so afraid of the alternative of not doing anything that I was like, screw it, we're going into production. I got to cast and shoot this thing now.
And just like an actor who stumbles over a line, if they're killing the scene, I'm like, whatever, he's killing the scene. I don't care that he stumbled over the line. It's the same thing if I'm watching a film that the director is going, it wasn't great, but I, the viewer, am going, well, maybe it wasn't perfect, but it had moments of brilliance or moments that moved me to laughter, to tears, to pondering. If you take a look at Jesus versus Santa Claus, if you ever get a chance. Jesus versus Santa Claus is the very first film made by Trey Parker and Matt Stone, using the characters from South Park. It's a 2-minute short that they did about Jesus being pissed that Santa Claus is trying to take over Christmas, and they have a fight and all that kind of stuff. But from that, because these two were creative entities, grew this entire, incredible South Park kingdom. And, they went on to create Book of Mormon and some really good Oscar nominations for their movies, all from just putting their passion out there. We all hope it's going to catch fire, but just like Owen says, there is no exact path to the top. You just have to keep pushing. There's a video out there, if you guys have seen it, of Chapel Roan in a park singing Pink Pony Club to 7 people who aren't even effing listening. Cut to her singing it to 120,000 people at Lollapalooza or whatever in Chicago, that nobody even knew she ruled the world, but she put it out there, and eventually, it had been out for years. Eventually, it caught fire. So you just got to keep believing in yourself and putting it out there, I think.
100%. And whatever it is. If you're interested in directing, I remember being desperate to direct anything and going to the Getty Museum and walking through the impressionistic paintings. And they have some paintings in there with literally 100 characters, people in boats and doing the, and I would take my phone and just film, try and connect stories. How do we, just it's cutting
just
here.
Just making it up as you go along.
Yeah, just
Owen's crazy, y'all.
Crazy.
Y'all heard that, right?
Literally. But yes, it's certifiable. I'll take it. But whatever it takes, just to practice and just get.
And when you're that kind of creative entity, you can't help yourself. I remember when Van Gogh was in prison, the sanitarium and all that, and he wasn't behaving. To punish him, they took away his paints, because they knew that would get to him, and he wrote to his brother saying, I'm going crazy because the wheat is coming in. It's beckoning to me to be painted, and I can't paint it. When you have that kind of creative juju going on inside you, you have to find an outlet or you'll lose it. You won't be able to function. Yeah. Working 12 hours a day or 14 hours a day or probably 16 hours sometimes might seem exhausting. But, when you love what you do, like they say, you never work a day in your life. Yeah, it's got to be so exciting to get down there
it's the best kind of exhaustion.
Do that every day. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I feel the same way with you guys. I always tell you guys, I do. You'll quit before I will. Sometimes you'll call me and be like, I have this last minute taping I got to do. Can you help me? And I'll be like, well, I'm taping until 12:30 tonight, but I can do you at 12:30. And you'll be like, oh, well, no. Oh, you're not going to, huh? I'm there. I'm going. All you got to do is drive down. I think giving it your best shot, throwing your colors on the canvas fearlessly, or even if there is fear. If there's fear, then throwing it on bravely so that there's fear, but you're going out there anyway,
And you've heard this before. The work is not what happens on the set. The work is the getting there. The work is the audition. The work is the tape. The work is the memorizing. That's the work. As an actor, man, no one to this day has been able to really give you that schedule and that structure. That's why it's so hard. So all you can do is practice the craft, memorize the lines, make the shorts, whatever it is that floats your boat, because that's the work. Like when you get hired, that's awesome. The check comes, you get to do it. That's great.
It's the gravy.
But the work is everything leading up to that. I have a question for you guys too. What is the greatest fear in one word?
Failure.
Okay. What else? Anything else? Failure at what? Failure on the day, failure in the, I'm not going to make it.
I guess like just not creating, just not making it, not doing it, not being in the room. I want to do something, you know? I want to make something with some people, and not having that, or a possibility of not actually working, is devastating. Like it would just be wasting at that point.
I mean, the odds of you even getting to pursue your dreams like you are 1 in 1,000 on this planet, you know? How many actors in Outer Mongolia are going up for your roles, you know? Or they may be super talented too. You know, how many kids in Ukraine are able to read for stuff, you know? Yet here you are and you're actually getting your shot. So if you don't give it everything you have, what a shame, really, what a shame.
Yeah, and so I hear the fears, and I have my own. I relate to every one of your fears on some level, right? And the fear can be something around our neck with weights on it that just keeps us tethered to, you know, the ground, and we're like that. Or it can be a spring under your feet. It can be a spring under wings that take you, you know, it can be a secret weapon because something in there is driving you. So it doesn't own you. You know, you have to just make peace with it, knowing that, right? So you got to find the way to get expressed in a way that makes you feel good at night, because truly, like you just have to make your offering and not judge the arena. The arena, it comes or it doesn't come, you know. Just make your offering, whatever that is, the short film, the role, the preparation, the audition that you nail, but you didn't look right, whatever. Can't control that. So, I mean, look, it can drive you or it can weigh you down. Don't let it weigh you down, just, you know. And the other thing is about the making money thing. That's why having a day job or some kind of another job just takes that out of the equation, because then you just take that pressure off yourself. Finding the right thing is tough, but.
But also, you know, nowadays, it's so much easier for you guys to have a job and still pursue this. You know, it used to be that you had auditions, you had to go in the room. So 2 o'clock on Tuesday, you had to drive to Santa Monica, and you live in Woodland Hills, you know, for some commercial audition in the hopes that you get a call back, and now you got to drive again and wait an hour while they pray. But nowadays it's like, so you can really, you can do better with your time, managing your time, and still pursue this with everything, you know? All right, guys, let's give Owen a big round of applause. Thank you so much for coming.